Alright, so we're continuing on now with the summary of Slaughterhouse-5, and we're now to the middle of the story. So, where we left off, uh, Billy was about to describe what it was like when he was abducted by the Tralfamadorians. So, what happens is Billy wakes up in the middle of the night, on the night of his daughter's wedding anniversary, or not anniversary, the night of his daughter's wedding, and he goes downstairs and he gets some champagne and he's just hanging out for a little bit. Then he goes outside and the enormous flying saucer appears out of nowhere, and he already knows it's coming because he's lived in this moment many times because he's able to jump back and forth in time. So he's already done this, so he knows what's happening. And so he's outside. He hears what sounds like an owl, and he knows that's a flying saucer. And the flying saucer comes, and he's frozen in his spot, and then he's sucked up into the tube of the flying saucer, and then he's held in that chamber, and the flying saucer leaves Earth. So while he's there, they explain to him how the Tralfamadorians see time fourth dimensionally, how they can see all of time in one time, and that's how they see it all the time. And humans can only see like one moment in time, and we're stuck in our moment like an insect in amber. But so while he's up there, Billy learns how they see time, and he starts to realize that his flashes are him being unstuck in time instead of a bridge between how they see time fourth dimensionally and how we as humans see time third dimensionally, how we're stuck in each moment. And so Billy learns about how they see time, and then they arrive at the actually before they arrive at the zoo, because they're taking him to a zoo, so he'll be part of an exhibit on Tralfamador, which is where they're from. They explain to him that time again, and they explain how their books are different from human books, how they see a selection of random messages, and they can see them all at once, and they form a picture of a beautiful image, and it has a message and a beautiful story in just that one image. And that's kind of what this book is, the way it's comprised of a bunch of different memory flashes that have deep meaning. And it's such a short book, but at the same time it has so much impact with these random events pieced together very well by Kurt Vonnegut, or Vonnegut I should say. And he did a very good job with that. And the Tralfamadorians representation of what a story is how this is, because he was changing the way stories were written by doing this. And so moving on, and so now he flashes back because they've hit a time warp, so they can get to Tralfamador faster. They hit a time warp, and he flashes back to the war. So now we're back, and at the prison camp they had just arrived at when we left off at the beginning of the story. And so they're taken through and processed and given new clothes and everything. And Billy is singled out the whole time. They give him the funny looking coat, and he still doesn't have proper shoes, and he's still lanky and awkward. And they get to a giant compound that's run by the English colonels that were captured. They're prisoners of war also, but they had some great luck. They have lots of food, and they have blankets and comfortable things, and they're friends with the German guards, so they allowed them to have 4 sheds, whereas they would normally only have 1. And they built up their own compound. So they take in the Americans, they feed them, they clean them up, they get them razors so they can shave, they give them cigars and chocolate and food and everything. And so then they get that, and Billy gets they have a musical production in place for the Americans, and while they're watching it, Billy just goes hysterical, not in a bad way. He was enjoying himself. He started laughing really hard, and they thought he was going insane a little. So they put him out, gave him morphine. He went to sleep, and he flashed forward again to when he was with the Tralfamadorians, and we learned about how he was up with the Tralfamadorians, and how once he got to the zoo, they made him strip down, just like how he did at the prison camp that they took him to. They made him strip down, and you could see there was parallels there between what Billy was experiencing in the war and what was happening on Tralfamador, which started having me as a reader raise some questions about is this actually happening to him, or is he hysterical after the war? I don't know. But so moving forward, Billy's there. He has absolutely no clothes on. He's in a giant dome, and there's a house in that dome with no walls, so he can be seen in the exhibit by the Tralfamadorians. And um, there's food there for him, running water, kitchen, books, a stereo, and that's where he's gonna be. And so now Billy is there, and he's answering questions about from the Tralfamadorians that are observing him, and he's like come to learn a little bit of how they communicate. Like at one point, Billy made an eloquent speech about how Americans perceived, or how humans perceive time, and how humans love to kill each other and hurt each other. Why can't we just live peacefully? And the Tralfamadorians, like I think I described before, we get a description of how they're shaped. It's like a toilet plunger with a hand on top, with an eye in the middle. And so he learns how they communicate a little bit, because they communicate telepathically. So they have to have like special devices to voice things to Billy. So they use that, and when Billy gives his speech, his long drawn out speech, which actually it was very, very good, talking about how humans should be peaceful. Why can't we just be peaceful? And the Tralfamadorians, they have their hands with the eyes in it, and the eye closes, and they put all the fingers down. And he learned that meant what he said was stupid, in their opinion. So he asked him. He said, "Why was that stupid?" They said, "Because there really is no point. Humans' violence won't have any effect on the galaxy or the universe. The Tralfamadorians know how the universe is going to end." They explain that one of their engineers is going to be testing a new fuel for their flying saucers, and he's going to destroy the entire universe by accident. And so they just ignore that ugly part, and just they focus on the peaceful parts of time, and that's how they live, and that's how they're peaceful, because they know what's coming is inevitable and they can't stop it. Like the fly in the amber, and like they say, time is just permanent. You can't change it in any way. That's how they perceive it. And Billy starts to realize that himself, and his time jumping and things like that. And he just accepts everything. That's where the "so it goes" line comes from, where he's just accepting everything that's happening. You can't change it. It is what it is. So it goes. And we move on now. Billy continues flashing back and forth, and we learn more about him, about the Tralfamadorians, how they see time, and how Billy's unstuck time dilemma, so to speak, forms his character. It really makes him sort of passive about things that happen. He doesn't really care what happens. And eventually what happens is a man is brought into the hospital wing where Billy is, and that man is going to be the reason why he dies, Paul Lazaro, because a friend of his, Roland Weary, essentially died as a result of Billy. Well, he didn't really, but he blames Billy. The man, Roland Weary, as we said at the beginning, he had his boots taken away and was given clogs, and the clogs ended up destroying his feet and giving him gangrene. And while they were on the train going to the prison camp, he died, and he blamed Billy for it. So now Paul Lazaro says he's going to kill Billy, and he was in the hospital because he was trying to steal from an Englishman, one of the colonels, and the colonel broke his arm and knocked him out. So they reset his arm and casted him up, and he was saying to the guy who broke his arm, he said, "I'm going to kill you after the war, or have you killed?" And the guy basically said to him, he says to him, "Well, I still have time to kill you while you're here in bed, so don't make me think I have to." And so they move on from there, and they talk about Billy's there, Paul Lazaro is there, and another man is there named Edgar Derby. And Edgar Derby, he becomes a little bit of a central character after that. We learn immediately that he's going to die as soon as they're taken to Dresden after the bombing happens for stealing a teapot. So it goes. And he eventually becomes the leader of their American troops and things like that, but he dies quickly anyway. So that happens, and then eventually they're taken to a theater, and Billy finds boots for himself, so he's not hobbling around anymore. And then he continues to flash back and forth. Nothing really major happens there, except that a movie star from Earth is brought to him, a very beautiful young woman named Montana Wildhack. And him and Montana Wildhack while they're up in the Tralfamadorian Zoo, end up having a child, which again made me believe how started making me believe it wasn't real. It was delusions, because his wife Valencia, who he ends up marrying, she's a big, large woman. He doesn't really love her. He thinks she's sort of gross, but he doesn't care. He ends up having this beautiful young movie star there, and they have a child and a life together up there. So I'm starting to think there's something there that's not right. And moving forward from that, eventually they're all the Americans are gathered up and they leave, and they're going to Dresden now on a train. And now they have more space. They're not cramped to two cars with the hundreds of men there. They have four cars. They're spread out. They're comfortable. They get taken to Dresden, and they arrive at Dresden, and everything's loose and comfortable. They get jobs at a factory making syrup with vitamins in it for pregnant women. And they're taken to Slaughterhouse-5, and that's where the title came from. They're taken to Slaughterhouse-5, and we already know the bombings are coming, but for now they're just taken there and they're settling in, and that's where the middle of the story ends with all the flashing, and we start to develop Billy more and more. But now the end is coming. We've reached a point that the way this story works is whenever there's a big setting change, that's when the sections of the story are starting to move forward. There's a gradual plot progression. You have to pay attention closely to see it because of the way it jumps around. But essentially what is happening is now we've started. Billy was wandering around in Luxembourg. Now he's moved forward. They were in the German prison camp. That was the middle. Now we're moving forward again to Dresden. And that's the beginning of the end.